All right, welcome to lesson number 5. So now that Airtable is all set up, in this lesson, we're going to walk through and set up the mark as complete functionality. So basically, we're going to be setting up a button on our lessons page. And when a member clicks that button, it's going to initiate a zap sequence. And that's going to add a row in our completed videos table in Airtable. And then it's going to send that data back to Webflow in order to update the member profile with which video they have watched. So yeah, let's dive in and get going. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is add a field on the video collection in Webflow to store the item ID. And we need that so we know which video the member is marking as complete. So let's go back to Webflow, go back to the collections, and I'm gonna go into series episodes, click settings. All right, and I'm just going to say plain text. I'm going to say episode item ID. Click save and save collection. So since I don't have that many episodes, I'm just going to do this manually. So all the IDs are available right here for me to copy and paste in. So I'm just going to save that. If you have way too many to do by hand, you can use something like Integromat or Parabola to automate this process. You can set it up to go find those and update every single item. But for now, I'm just going to speed through this and add all these real quick. All right, so that's all good. I'm going to go ahead and publish. So all of these are live. Okay, so now the fun part starts. Let's go to the series episodes template. And what we want to do is add a button here to mark the video as completed. So what we're going to do, you don't want a standard button. You actually want an entire form. So let's add a form. And the reason you want to do this is because the form submission is going to act as a trigger to initiate the Zapier process. First off, I'm going to update the name of this and say mark as complete. That way we can know which is which in Zapier. And then you can go ahead and delete all these fields, the name and inputs for the name and email. We really just want the button here. So first off, I'm going to change this and say mark as watched. All right, and actually let me just move this out of here so there's a little bit of space. And then I'm just going to add some margin bottom to space it out. Okay, so what we want to do here is actually add some hidden inputs. That way we can pass additional information to Zapier. So what we're going to do is if we go into this form, let's go ahead and select a embed, save and close that. We want to go make sure it's above the button. All right. And then what we want to do here is add some hidden inputs. So I'm just going to copy and paste these in. But what you want to do is input type equals hidden value. We're going to pull that name from the CMS, and then the data name is going to be video name. There's going to be a hidden input for the video ID. And then this one is MS data, and it's the Webflow member ID, which remember when we set up, we added that to their profile. So you can see that here. The reason we added that is so we can know which member is clicking this button. So this is being pulled from member stack, so we don't need to worry about that. Just make sure the MS data equals whatever, in our case, member Webflow ID matches whatever you called this. In our case, Webflow member ID. Okay, and then these we're able to pull from the CMS itself. So because this is a template page, we're able to pull values from the collection itself. So I'm gonna put the title here, and then for the value of the second hidden field, I'm gonna do the episode item ID. Okay, so now when we click this submit button, it's going to send all 3 of these over to Zapier, which then we can add to Airtable and back into Webflow. So let's go ahead and save and close. And I'm just going to, first off, add a class to this called button so it matches the styles. Cool. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and publish this and open that page. All right, so let's go ahead and click mark as watched. Okay, so the form was submitted. So obviously that didn't do anything except for submit the form yet. But if we go back to Zapier, we're gonna create a new Zap process. So the trigger here is Webflow form submission. So let's select Webflow, and form submission is the trigger, and select the Webflow account. Site name, no code membership demo. Form name, remember we named that mark as complete. Let's go ahead and click continue. And the reason we went ahead and submitted that form is because if you don't, Zapier won't know that the form exists. So you need to first submit it so that Zapier is able to pull that info. Okay, so submission A, you can see the no code membership demo. The video name, remember we were on, we were on this page. The title was Webflow Grid 2.0. The item ID is right here. The last four is 9EF3. We can confirm that's correct if we go to the lesson and then Grid 2.0, 9EF3. Perfect. Okay, so now we have data to work with. All right, so what we want to do now is look up that member in Airtable. So we want to find which member submitted this and then find them in Airtable. So that way we can reference which video was clicked by which member. Let's go to Airtable. We are going to go down and find a record. Select our Airtable account, the base, no code membership demo, and we're gonna do the members table. I'm gonna look this up by the Webflow ID. You could look it up by their email or their name, but I just feel like the item ID is a little bit more unique and shouldn't change. So that way you know it's the right member. And then we are gonna pass the value. We want it to look up the ID by this ID. Nope, that's wrong. That's the video ID. Okay, so what we want is actually the data member Webflow ID, which did not get passed through. So let's go back. Webflow member ID is what we called it. Let's go back to the form. Go back in here. Webflow member-ID. That should be correct. Why is it not pulling? Did I misspell it? Webflow member-ID. I believe that's correct. Let me just try republishing. And let's mark it as watched again. Actually, let's try a different episode. Mark this as watched. All right, let's go back into Zapier. Let's get more samples. Submission A, did that get? Okay, so the member ID was passed through. I'm not sure why it wasn't passed through on that second one. Anyway, let's go ahead and select the submission A because it has the Webflow member ID and we need that. Okay, let's go back to Airtable and customize that. All right, so we are looking up by the field of their Webflow ID, and then the value is being passed through that form submission. All right, so let's go ahead and continue and test it out. We're getting an error. Let's go to Airtable. Oh, okay. So that we are signed in as Chico Pico, and that never got added to Airtable. So let's see. Let's go ahead and log out. So we never updated that when we signed up, the Chico Pico, so it never got added to Airtable. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and log in as that first account, test.test.com. Okay, now I'm going to go to the series and attempt to mark one as complete. All right, mark as watched. All right, so let's go back to Airtable or Zapier. And let's get a new sample. Okay, so intro to the designer was the one we just submitted. So let's select that. Now, customize record, we're looking it up by the Webflow ID. And D047. Okay, so it is in Airtable. Let's confirm that it works. Test and review. Okay, so that member was found in Airtable. So now what we want to do is create a row in the completed videos table. So let's go to Airtable, create record, select the Airtable account. We're going to do the no code member data or demo, completed videos. And then here's where we're going to pass through all that info. So this was all passed through via those hidden fields. So form submission. So the video name is right here, intro to the designer. So the member we find from that second one when we looked the member up. So it's a field member name. The video ID will be from the form submission, which is data video ID. And then the member reference, we're going to get that from the second one, and we're going to select this very first ID. So that's the ID of the member in Airtable. So let's go ahead and click continue and test that out, see if it works. All right, so it sent that over. Perfect. Let's delete these three. Not sure why I created those. Oh, one big important step that I missed. So it is working. It did send everything over. The video ID actually needs to be in a very specific format. You do need to wrap that in double quotes. So just go ahead and put some double quotes around that. And then go ahead and retest it. Okay, a record was sent over. Perfect. So now it's adding it in the correct format. Let's go ahead and delete that first one. Okay, so actually I'm gonna go ahead and turn on this app so I can test it out with a few more records. So let's go back to our template. We completed this one. Let's also try to complete intro to HTML. Perfect. And let's see if that worked. Intro to HTML. And then maybe do the box model as well. Click complete. Perfect. Okay, so in order to get these video IDs back into Webflow, what we need to do is go back to the members table. We're going to create a field called a rollup. So I'm going to call this completed video rollup. And then the field type is going to be a rollup. So it has this little icon right here. So what this is going to do is it's going to roll up the completed videos. And then we're going to choose the field and it's going to be video Webflow ID. And then we need to add a formula here. So go ahead and type array unique. So right here. So this makes sure to return only unique values. And then go ahead and click save. So if we expand this a bit, so you can see all of these were rolled up into one field, comma separated. So it's in the format that Webflow needs in order to send it back. Okay, so now that we have the correct format in order to send back to Webflow, we can go back to our app. Now that we created a record in the completed videos table, we actually need to look up that member again, because when we found the member originally, they didn't have this new rollup field. So if a new one gets added, we then want to look it up so we can get the latest version of this rollup field. So let's go to Airtable again, select find, and basically the same process as that second record. The base is going to be the demo, table is going to be members, and then we're going to look it up by their ID, and we'll find them by the member ID, not the video ID. Click continue. Okay, so that is good. They were able to find them in Airtable. Okay, so now in order to send the data back into Webflow, we actually can't use the standard Webflow trigger. So we can't use the update live item. In order to do it, we need to actually use a webhook. So go to webhook by Zapier. And we're actually going to be using the Webflow API. So if you do Webflow API, Google that. It's developers.webflow.com. So this is probably one of the most complicated steps of the whole process, but I'll walk you through it. So you want to do a custom request first off, and then the request method is going to be a patch. So we need a URL to pass through. And you can find the correct URL to use for the API on the Webflow developers site. So if you go under items, and then let's see, it's update live collection item. That's the one we want. So you can see right here, we have this curlx put HTTPS, and then it has this long link. So here we have the collection ID, and then here we have the item ID. So you want to go ahead and select this whole line right here, copy that, and then paste that in. So we do need to replace a few things. So the collection ID, you can go into Webflow, click on members. In the settings, you have the collection ID right here. So I'm just going to copy that, go back to Zapier, paste that in. And then the item ID, we're actually going to pull from the previous step. So we could do it from the second one and find their Webflow ID. And then you need to make sure you have this live equals true in order to update the collection item without publishing the site. Okay, so for the data, what we want to do, we actually need to write it in a specific way. So first off, curly brackets, and then inside of here, we're going to do, let's do 2 spaces, double quotes. We want to do fields, colon, and then opening and closing curlies as well. And you can see this if you go back to developer site. I'm finding this here. And then what you want to do, oh, so actually I almost forgot a very important step. We need to reference which videos the member has completed. So in order to do that, we need to add a multi-reference field. And that's actually what we're going to be updating through this Zap process. So go ahead and click multi-reference, and I'm going to call this completed videos, and then select the collection. So it's going to be the series episodes, and click save. Okay, so now we have completed videos. All right, so back in Zapier, what we want to do, is do completed dash videos, that reference field we just created. This is what we're updating. And then we're going to do colon, and then square brackets. And then inside the square brackets is where we're going to pass through that rollup field. So we're going to find that on the 4th step on that find record in Airtable. And you can see the rollup field has all the IDs that we want to pass back through. Okay, and then we're almost there. We just need to add a few headers. So you can see on, all the headers right here. We need authorization bearer, accept version, and the content type. So let's go ahead and copy authorization. So we're going to select bearer, paste that in. So this is your API token, which remember you can find if you go to the project settings and go to integrations. You can generate the API token and copy that and then paste that back in. All right, and then we need those last two, accept version, and it's going to be 1.0.0. And then we also need content type, and that's going to be application/JSON. So the data is actually formatted in JSON that we're passing back through to Webflow. Okay, so before I forget, let's go ahead and save, publish this so that the API call will work correctly. All right, so let's go ahead and test it out. So we're doing a patch to the API to our collection and our specific item. And then we're passing through the completed videos. So let's go ahead and test and review. All right, so a custom request was just sent. Let's go back to Webflow and check it out. Let's refresh. All right, let's see. Go to members, and Chico Pico has nothing, but Mackenzie Child has these 3 videos. Awesome. Okay, so it's all working correctly. I'm gonna go ahead and test it out some more. Let's go ahead and turn on this Zap, and I'm gonna go back to my site. Let's see. Let's try to select this one, mark this one as complete. Haha, perfect. Okay, and let's see if that worked. So we can go to Airtable. Okay, so spanning sparkling water, that was added. It was added to our Rollup. And if I go back and refresh, it should be added to that multi-reference. There it is. Awesome. All right, so now we have the mark as complete all set up. We know which members completed which videos. So in the next lesson, we're going to set up the dashboard to filter through and only display which episodes they have already completed.